Daniel Carter died with a cop's knee in his back and woke up in hell's confession booth. For 7 minutes, his soul toured heaven's brutal archives, stained glass lies, ancestors screaming through centuries of blood, and a brown-skinned Jesus demanding answers. "Tell them the truth," God growled as Daniel's heart rebooted. Now he's back, with bullet scars and divine receipts. This is no near-death experience. It's a resurrection manifesto for a world choking on racial sin. I was born into a world that taught me to see color before soul. My name is Daniel Carter, a black man raised in the suburbs of Atlanta, where the trees were tall but the prejudices ran deeper than the roots. My parents, educated, middle class, believed in respectability politics. "Work twice as hard," my father would say, "and maybe they'll see you as half as good." I followed the script. College degree, polished speech, avoiding threatening hoodies. I thought racism was a relic, something that happened back then until the day it swallowed me whole. I'd convinced myself America had evolved. Sure, I'd felt the stares in elevators, heard the muttered "you're so articulate," but I brushed it off. "They don't mean it like that," I'd tell my younger cousin, who raged about police brutality. I voted, donated to BLM, but deep down, I believed if I just played the game, the system would spare me. Then came July 17th. I was driving home from a late shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse, when blue lights flashed behind me. My hands shook as I reached for my license. Keep calm. Be polite. But the officer's grip on his gun tightened as he approached. "Step out slowly," he barked. I complied, reciting my rehearsed script. "Sir, I'm a healthcare worker." My ID in my. The first bullet tore through my thigh. The second. My chest. As I collapsed on the asphalt, his radio crackled. "Unit 47, suspect matched description. Black male, 6'1", red shirt." The description fit half the men in my neighborhood. Blood pooled beneath me, warm and sticky, as his boot pressed into my shoulder. "Stop resisting," he hissed. But I wasn't moving. I couldn't. The last thing I heard was my own voice, ragged and broken. I was just going home. Darkness. Then, light. A voice, neither male nor female but alive, whispered, "Now you'll see." I'd spent my life believing racism was a shadow, fading with time. But as my soul tore free from my body, I realized the cruel joke. I'd never truly seen racism until I stood outside of time, face to face with God. The pain vanished first. 1 second I was choking on my own blood, asphalt grinding into my cheek. The next, nothing. No sirens, no panicked shouts. Just a hollow pop as my soul peeled away from my body like a shadow stepping into light. I looked down and saw myself, crumpled, bleeding, the officer's hands shaking as he radioed for backup. "Stay with me." A paramedic yelled, but I was already gone. No fear, no anger, just detachment, like watching a movie where I'd once starred. Then, motion. I was rising, faster than gravity should allow, through the hospital's fluorescent-lit chaos. Doctors pumped my chest, shouting codes. A nurse sobbed in the corner. But their voices walked, fading into a hum, then silence. The ceiling melted away, and suddenly, light. Not the sterile glare of operating rooms, but golden, thick as honey. It cradled me, warm as my grandmother's arms when she rocked me to sleep. The scent of jasmine and rain washed over me. No more antiseptic stench, no blood, no fear. A whisper echoed in my bones. "Breathe, child." But I didn't need to. For the first time, I was whole. No fists, no bullets, no skin to judge. Just peace. And then, the voice again, gentle but unshakable. "Come. See what they've done to my children." The light dissolved around me, and suddenly my feet touched solid ground. The not ground as I knew it. It shimmered like liquid pearl underfoot, cool and impossibly smooth. I stood in a vast marble hall, its arched ceilings stretching so high they vanished into a golden haze. Towering pillars, carved with intricate symbols from every culture I could name, and many I couldn't, lined the space. People moved everywhere. No, not people. Souls. Thousands of them, flowing in streams toward arched tunnels that glowed like submerged rainbows. Their forms flickered between solid and translucent, their features shifting, young, old, every shade of skin, every texture of hair. Yet despite the diversity, something chilled me. They were clustering by race. Afro-textured souls drifted toward one tunnel. Pale, freckled souls toward another. Elderly Asian souls huddled together, their auras dim with exhaustion. A group of indigenous souls stood apart entirely, their hands clasped around what looked like broken chains that still smoldered. "This is the guidance center," said a voice beside me. The burning library dissolved into a garden where olive trees wept golden sap. And then he was there. Not the pale, flowing-haired Christ of Renaissance art. This man had skin like sun-baked clay, a wide nose, and thick curls matted with desert dust. His feet, still scarred from the nails, were calloused from miles walked in refugee sandals. When he spoke, his Aramaic-tinged voice shook the air. "You kneel to a fiction." He raised his hands, and the garden became a megachurch, crisp suits, stained glass, a 30-foot white Jesus glaring from the altar. The pastor preached on unity, while ushers steered black visitors to the back rows. "You build kingdoms in my name," Jesus said, while rejecting my face. A tear slid down his cheek. Where it hit the marble floor, the image changed. A Confederate flag draped over a communion table. A Latino child turned away from a whites-only Bible camp. My own hands clutching a wallet tighter when a black teen boarded my train. "Racism is a lie," he growled. "Invented to make my children forget their siblings." He tore his robe open, revealing not the spear wound, but a gaping hole where his heart should be. Inside, I saw enslaved Christians whipped for reading "Love Thy Neighbor." Lynchings photographed like picnics, Bibles tucked under arms. My grandmother praying to a porcelain white Jesus, while realtors redlined his streets. "You grafted hate onto my gospel," he whispered. I fell to my knees. "But the Bible says," I know what I said. Thunder rolled as his eyes blazed. "I broke bread with Samaritans you'd cross streets to avoid. A Syrophoenician woman schooled me in faith. You'd call her illegal now." He yanked a chain from the air, the same one from the library, and snapped it with one twist. "The cross was a lynching tree, yet you worship the noose and call it holy." The church around us rotted. Pews collapsed into sleigh ships. The stained glass white Jesus cracked, revealing a black Madonna underneath. Jesus pressed his forehead to mine. His breath smelled of vinegar and mint. "Tell them the truth. I was the other. I am the other. When you reject them, you reject me." Then, silence. The garden returned. A sparrow landed on his shoulder as he wiped my tears with his sleeve. "Now," he said, offering me the broken chain, "go build a table where all my children fit." A gust of wind carried me from the garden to the base of a towering black stone fortress, its parapets lined with shadowy figures. Chains, some broken, some still taut, dangled from its gates. The air thrummed with a low, collective moan that raised the hairs on my neck. "Hate outlives the grave," Jesus said, suddenly beside me. His hand, still marked by the nail, pointed to the castle's highest tower where two figures wrestled, a white-hooded soul and a black man with a noose around his neck, locked in an eternal struggle, until they choose release. The massive iron doors groaned open. Inside, the castle was a labyrinth of chambers, each holding a reckoning. A plantation owner weeping as enslaved children stitched his lips shut with ghostly thread. A 1960s segregationist forced to drink from whites-only fountains that burned like acid. My high school principal, who'd suspended black kids twice as often, now trapped in a room where desks shoved him into walls. It materialized, holding a key that glowed like a dying ember. "This opens your chamber." The door before me bore my name. Inside, the officer who shot me crouched in a corner, replaying my death on a loop. His spirit was frayed, his uniform splattered with my blood that never dried. When he saw me, he scrambled back. "I didn't know," the call said, armed. My rage surged. I wanted him to suffer, to feel my fear, my family's grief. Daniel. Jesus stood between us, his scars glowing. "The chains you forge in anger bind you both." The room's walls dissolved into memories. The officer as a boy, flinching when his dad called a black cashier boy. His hands shaking the first time he drew his gun on a black teen. The relief in his eyes when the department ruled my shooting justified. I tasted his shame, sour as bile. "Forgiveness isn't absolution," Jesus said. "It's taking the knife from your own wound." The key in my hand blazed. I could, 1. Lock him here forever. 2. Free him and myself. I knelt, gripping the officer's shaking shoulders. "I see you." The key melted into light, severing the chain between us. Outside the castle, Jesus nodded at the tower. The hooded figure and lynched man unclenched their hands, just for a second. "Now," he said, "go teach them to drop the rope." Devastating truce. 1. Will hate as self-imprisonment. Perpetrators are trapped, not triumphant. 2. Forgiveness justice. It's a weapon that dismantles systemic chains. 3. Generational haunting. The tower scene shows racism's cyclical curse. The castle's shadows evaporated as Iddy guided me into a colossal domed chamber, its seating a swirling cosmos. Constellations pulse like living veins, connecting galaxies in a luminous web. At the center hung Earth, a pale blue speck dwarfed by countless other vibrant worlds, each thrumming with harmony. "Behold," Jesus whispered. His fingertip brushed the air, magnifying a planet where violet-skinned beings built crystalline cities alongside copper-hued neighbors. Another showed winged creatures of every shade sharing a single language, song. "No wars, no borders, no prisons," Iddy said. "Just curiosity. Just love." A hologram zoomed in on Earth. Tear gas bloomed over protests. Bullets tore through synagogues, mosques, churches. Children in identical school uniforms clutched each other, separated by a chain-link fence labeled history. Jesus cupped my face, forcing me to stare into the cosmic tapestry. "You fracture yourselves over melanin," he said, "while the universe begs you to look up." Ancient Egypt. Nubian and Semitic scholars mapping stars together. The Silk Road. Black, Asian, and Arab traders laughing over shared spices. A future Earth. My great-granddaughter. Her skin a blend of races I'd once labeled other, planting flags on Mars with a team of every hue. "You are one species," Jesus said. "Act like it." The planetarium darkened. For the first time, I felt Earth's loneliness, a quarantined child refusing to join the galactic playground. Iddy handed me a tiny orb, our planet, warm and fragile. "Your turn to rewrite the story." The planetarium's stars blinked out as the ground beneath me softened into rich, dark soil. A great baobab tree materialized before me, its branches stretching into eternity. Beneath its canopy stood hundreds of souls, black, white, indigenous, Asian, their faces lined with wisdom and sorrow. My ancestors. A Yoruba woman in indigo robes stepped forward, her wrists still bearing the scars of shackles. "I am Nneka," she said, pressing her palm to my chest. "They called me Mary in the fields." Beside her stood a Scotsman in tattered plantation clothes, his eyes hollow. I own people like you," he choked out. "The guilt burns worse than hellfire." To my left, a Cherokee elder clasped hands with a black Union soldier. To my right, my white great-great-grandfather, a man I'd never met, knelt before a Haitian woman, washing her feet with his tears. "Look closer," Jesus murmured. NDEC's enslaver was also her grandson, a mixed-race child she'd been forced to bear. The Scotsman's descendant was a black civil rights lawyer. My own DNA swirled between them, all 48% African, 32% European, 20% indigenous, a living mosaic of pain and resilience. "No one is pure," Jesus said, "only human." The ancestors formed a circle, their hands linked. A low chant began, "Break the cycle," in 100 tongues. NDECA pressed her forehead to mine. "You carry our wounds," she whispered. "Now carry our healing." The Scotsman gripped my shoulder. "Tell them we were fools. Tell them too." Then the most shocking reunion. The officer who shot me stood beside my great-grandfather, both trembling. "Forgiveness," Jesus said, "is the only bridge between then and now." The ancestors faded, but their voices lingered. "Break the cycle. Break it. Break." The ancestors' voices still echoed when Jesus stood before me, his hands outstretched. In one palm glowed earth, its walls and protests tiny as entrails. In the other pulsed heaven's light, warm as a lullaby. "Stay," he urged. "No more pain. No more fighting." I reached for the light, then froze. The officer's face flashed in my mind. My cousin's rage at rallies. The library's burning books. "They'll call you a traitor," Jesus warned. "They'll say I sent you to divide." A vision unfolded. Me on TV, calling out whitewashed Christianity, eggs splattering the studio glass. My mother crying, "Why can't you just move on?" A black teen pausing before a protest, holding my words like a shield. He materialized, gripping my arm. "They're still trapped in the castle. You've seen the key." I turned to Jesus, his brow furrowed with love. "I have to go back." He smiled, sad, proud, and pulled me into an embrace that smelled of sweat and myrrh. "Then tear down every idol built in my name." A final whisper. "Remember, you are not white, black, or brown. You are mine." I gasped awake. Hospital lights, beeping machines, a nurse's shocked cry. My body ached, but my soul burned. Returns with a mission, not just memories. No tidy resolution, real-world struggle implied. Jesus' last lines become the book's title/mantra. Epilogue/aftermath could cover. First speech post-NDE, angry crowds. Visiting the officer in prison. The teen protester's fate. The hospital ceiling swam into focus, its fluorescent lights stinging my eyes. Tubes snaked from my arms. Machines beeped a steady reminder. You're alive. But the scent of jasmine from the afterlife still clung to my skin. A nurse, black, mid-50s, her scrub stained with my blood, gaped as my fingers twitched. "Miracle," she breathed, calling for the doctor. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the ventilator. My body felt foreign, heavy with unhealed wounds. Yet inside, fire raged. The first week, they told me I died for 7 minutes. 7 minutes that dismantled my world. My family sobbed at my bedside, but their relief curdled when I rasped, "Jesus is brown." "Brain damage," my uncle muttered. The officer who shot me, suspended with pay. "Justified force," the report said. I stared at my reflection, same face, same scars, but the man in the glass was a stranger. The awakening. At 3 a.m. I Googled Middle Eastern Jesus. Articles about first-century Judean features flooded the screen. I devoured them then, researched how Renaissance art whitened Christ, wept over slave Bibles with deleted liberation verses, tracked down the officer's address. My hands shook as I typed my first Facebook post. I died and met a God who hates racism more than atheism. The comments exploded. Blasphemer. Proof. Tell us more. The mission begins. 1. Church pulpits. I crashed Sunday services, interrupting sermons with my NDE testimony. Some pastors had me dragged out. Others, usually the black ones, pulled me aside after, "We know." But the collection plate, 2. The officer's house. He answered the door hollow-eyed, his toddler clutching his leg. "I see you now," I said, handing him my hospital bill. "Pay it by teaching your kid the truth." 3. Protests. I marched for the sign. Jesus was a refugee. Cops in riot gear flinched when I shouted, "He be kneeling with BLM." The vision. Months later, I stood before a mixed crowd at a community center. A white teen sneered, "Why'd God make races if he hates racism?" The answer surged through me like prophecy. He didn't. You did. I described the planetarium's harmony, the ancestors' plea. How race is a myth, but racism is a spiritual stronghold. A black grandmother grabbed my arm afterward. "You sound like my granddaddy's visions." A pastor spat, "Demonic." I smiled. So was the cross. The chain breaks. Now I travel, teaching what I learned. Racism isn't skin deep, it's soul deep. The gospel was never white. Forgiveness is rebellion. Sometimes I still wake gasping, remembering the library's flames. But then I see a biracial child hugging my knees after a talk. The officer's wife slipping me a note. He's in therapy now. My cousin, once silent, leading a protest chant. I touch my chest scar, the bullet's souvenir, and whisper Jesus' last words. "You are mine. Not black, not white, just beloved." And that's enough to keep fighting. If you're watching this, God isn't done with you yet. My story isn't about me. It's about us. The afterlife showed me racism isn't just policy or prejudice. It's a spiritual parasite, feeding on fear and twisting Christ's gospel into a weapon. But here's the lightning bolt that still jolts me awake. You are part of the cure. 1. Face your blind spots, even if it burns. That joke you laughed at. The time you stayed silent. The vote you cast thinking, "It doesn't affect me." The afterlife doesn't forget. But here's the grace. You can repent now. Do this today. Write down one racial bias you denied. Burn it. Pray over the ashes. God, remake my eyes. 2. Listen like the down depends on it. It does. In heaven, I felt Marco's shame when I dismissed his pain. Earth gives no such cheat codes. You must choose to listen. Do this today. Find a voice unlike yours, a black theologian, an indigenous podcaster. Consume their work without debating. Just absorb. 3. Weaponize your privilege. Yes, you have some. That thing you don't think about. Walking into stores unfollowed. Your ancestors in textbooks is leverage. Use it like Jesus used his divinity, to flip tables. Do this today. Call out racism in your family group chat. Yes, even if Aunt Karen disowns you. 4. Pray dangerous prayers. Not keep us safe, but shatter our idols. Not bless our nation, but confound our racism. The early church prayed chains of prisoners. Start praying them of souls. Do this today. Psalm 139, 23-24. Then act on what God reveals. The ultimate rebellion. Heaven's library showed me. Racism always loses. Every lie collapses. Every chain rusts. But the timeline, that's on us. I'm just a man who died for 7 minutes. You're the miracle God placed here now. So when you correct the whitewashed Sunday school lesson, boycott the racist employer, kneel beside the grieving black mother, you're not just fighting injustice. You're answering the ancestors' chant. Break the cycle. And when enough of us do, Earth will finally mirror heaven's harmony, where every tongue, tribe, and tear-stained face gathers at a table too wide for hate. I'll meet you there.